John, we have somebody who was very, very busy this offseason to try to build up his team, and that's the president of baseball operations for the Chicago Cubs, Jed Hoyer.
Not just busy, he executed it beautifully. I thought the Cubs were one of the winners, as I said in my column at the New York Post. Jed did a fantastic job. He's a friend of the show. He's always a great interview, and really looking forward to this one.
Yeah, he did one of the biggest moves of the offseason, Alex Bregman, bringing him in as a free agent. I'm sure we'll talk about that and a lot more. John and I are going to play a little game at the top where we pick the X factor hitter and pitchers for both New York teams. We'll play hit and error at the end if you stick with us on the show with Joel Sherman and Jon Heyman. Well, John, we've reached probably far enough into spring. We're about the midway point of spring training to begin to try to see what would make the New York teams. I think we both think they're probably going to be pretty good this year. What would make them extra good and maybe real threats to win a championship? I was going to call them wild cards. Our excellent producer, Tommy Hogan, came up with a better word, X factors. We're going to take a hitter and a pitcher from both teams who we think are X factors. So we're obviously not talking about the Aaron Judges and the Juan Sotos, etc. We're talking about people who we think could maybe have surprisingly good seasons and impact the New York teams. Why don't we start with the Mets, John? How about a hitter first? Who's your X factor?
I'll go with Jorge Polanco. There's a lot of pressure on him replacing Alonso. The fans loved Alonso. He was very productive, the all-time Mets home run hitter. I know obviously the defense wasn't great. Polanco is learning a new position, which is a little bit of an issue. I think he'll be okay because he was a shortstop coming up. He's a good athlete. He can hit. The guy can really hit if he's healthy. His career has been, it's obviously a good career. He's making $20 million a year. You don't pay somebody $20 million if you're not a good player, but he has been hit by the injury bug. Alonso played every single day, and he's not going to hit 40 home runs like Alonso could hit, but this guy can hit, and if he's on the field, he will be very productive. But history tells us there's no guarantee there.
Yeah, John, I think you hit on kind of. I'm going to go with a player here in a second, and believe it or not, it's going to be first base also. But I think the overall X factor for the Mets, just to jump on your thing, is do Polanco and Bichette handle these transitions well to positions they've never played before? I think we're probably in agreement that by adding Simeon at second and Robert in center, they have excellent catchers. Luis Torrens in particular is as good a backup catcher as there is in the sport because of his defensive quotient. And Lindor is a very good shortstop. I think the defense is really about that first and third, how these guys translate there. And because of that, I'm going to make my X factor Mark Vientos with the belief that at some point he's actually going to be the first baseman of this team. Because I think, John, I think you're right on. I think Polanco is vital, and having his bat hitting cleanup every day is vital. And I think he probably has to be off of his feet a little bit. There's just been some lower body stuff that I think he'll need to be protected from. And if I were establishing a over under, you talked about Alonso's durability, which was pretty much 162 game durability. I would put it at about 110 for Polanco at first base, and then I'd go under.
Yeah, I
I
understand.
think Vientos and Beatty are going to end up playing a lot of first base. And John, like to me, how close to 2024 Vientos do the Mets get? That was a pretty special hitter, not only because the numbers were great, but the timeliness of it all was great. Is that guy still in there? If he is, to me, it's an X factor. It's transformative.
Yeah, good pick. I mean, he was a great player in 2024, so clutch in the playoffs, but really good throughout the season after starting the year in the minors. 2025 obviously was, I don't say wasted year, but it was not a good year for Vientos. I think we're all rooting for him. Great guy, neighbor of mine, and a friend of the show. I mean, the guy has talent. He should be in a lineup, whether it's the Mets or somewhere else. Certainly, is he going to play? I don't know. I'm not sure how much he's going to play. I mean, I did say Polanco's going to not play a 162, which will leave some room for others. But I mean, Beatty's a guy. We could do a whole show on Beatty. I mean, this guy, I feel sorry for this guy. I mean, he was their one plus defender who was a starter last year. I mean, obviously Taylor and Torrens, who you referenced, are excellent defenders, but this guy was like a plus 6, plus 7 defender. at third base where people thought he couldn't play, and now he's been pushed out there. We thought he'd be in left field, and they signed Robert. He's not really a starting outfielder at this point. Is he going to play some first base? I mean, this is life. There are ups and downs. I feel like Beatty deserves more, and he does deserve to play. And certainly with injuries and some underperformance, he probably will get some good chances. But I think it's been a little unfair to Beatty at this point.
Yeah, I can't really argue with you, John. It's funny that Beatty and Vientos have had a lot of kinship along the way, both on and off the field. Their stories are the same. They kind of like have had great hope with the Mets, but they keep kind of getting blocked or falling off the horse, so to speak. And they're in that place again. Is this the last round of Survivor for both of them to show what they can do? I kind of feel Beatty is going to get a lot of at bats moving around the diamond. I don't think they want, Simeon had been like Alonso, an incredibly durable player. I don't think the Mets want that out of him this year. I think they'd settle for 135 games there. I think they'd probably settle for about the same number of games at third for Bichette and use him at DH some. I'm not positive. I think Benj is going to be the right fielder, but I'm not 100%. And if it turns out no, I think that Beatty gets in there. I think Beatty gets right. In other words, I think Beatty is as a defender is going to get a lot of at bats, and I think the season's going to begin with Vientos as the main DH.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're probably right there. I just, Beatty to me deserved more. And uh, I don't know. I think Vientos is a clear starting player for another team. The Mets are so enamored of good defense, and they certainly have improved defense. We talked about third and first are new players, but obviously they're much better in center as the starter is. They're much better at second now. They should be better overall in the outfield. So, I mean, the defense is going to be better overall, but I mean, they are so focused on the defense. I feel like somebody else would probably appreciate Vientos more. I don't know. It didn't seem like there was much buzz to him being traded. We saw Pittsburgh a little bit, but I kind of feel these guys. They both deserve a shot, but certainly Beatty does. After the year he had to be moved out of third base, I think it was unfortunate for him.
John, I'm going to ask you to do a picture next. I'll throw this one thing in about Vientos. An executive said to me in the offseason, he said, you guys, and I think he meant the reporters in New York and the fan base think a lot more of Mark Vientos than the industry thinks of him. And so I do. I actually think he's going to hit. I think he's a hitter in a time where it's hard to hit. I think he'll do it. On the subject of the improved run prevention, why don't we move on to an X factor pitcher, John? I wonder if we're going to end up with the same guy here. Go ahead.
Well, I'm going to go with Sean Manaea. There are a lot of guys who could be X factor pitchers for the Mets. Certainly, Senga could be one. You could go up and down. I mean, you could even go with McLean, right? Because he only gave you what 8 or 10 games last year. But I think we're both pretty confident in him. But I mean, Manaea is a little bit like Vientos. He was great in 2024 and frankly terrible last year. I know he's a friend of the show. If he's listening, I'm sorry, but he was terrible. I know they, make an excuse that he came back too soon. Came back too soon. He was out for what, 3.5 months? Is that too soon? Would they want him out for the whole year? There was no excuse. He was terrible.
Uh, John, you were in the vicinity. I mean, I'm with you. I think there's so many X factors. We didn't even mention bullpen guys. Do they get the Devin Williams, who David Stearns had in Milwaukee? Do they get the Luke Weaver of 2024 rather than 2025? Does Minter get healthy, who's such a good lefty? I think there were a lot of ways to go there. And I went on the Senga Minaya thing, and I took the other guy. I
Hmm.
took Senga because I'm with you on I just think McLean's going to be an ace. I just think he's going to be
Yep.
great.
Yeah, we
And
agree.
then if Freddie Peralta's your number two, and you kind of feel good about like Holmes and Peterson on the back end, it's really how high an end the number three guy do you get? And that's about Minaya and Senga. And so since you did Minaya, I'll do Senga, who for stretches as a rookie, and then at the beginning of last year until that fateful date of June 12th, when he leaps for Alonso throw, blows out his calf, I believe, and comes back a couple of months later as a shell of himself. There's questions: is he hurt too much? Is he tough enough? Can he last the whole season? we've seen the high end. If they got the high end for 25 starts behind McLean and Peralta, that is a really fantastic rotation to have Holmes and Mania and Peterson as the other guys. I just think
Right.
I think his high end is higher than Mania. That's why I went with him,
Oh,
John.
it certainly is. I mean, look what he did in a couple of years ago, right? I mean, yeah, 2025 was not a good year for the Mets, right? If they all
Yeah.
go back a year or two, they look a lot better, right? And you could say that about Vientos, and certainly you could say that about Manaea, and certainly about Senga. Yeah, I mean, Senga, he pitched like a Cy Young candidate his first year with the Mets. And, we just don't know what we're going to get. I mean, he was great for the first third of the season. Then he was hurt for the next third. Then he was really terrible. So bad they couldn't even use him. At least they used Mania. So yeah, I mean that's a good pick. If Senga and Mania are great, the Mets will have a great year.
Yes. I actually, yes, that's a good statement and yes. Why don't we flip to the Yankees? Let's start with the hitter there. Who do you have, John? I should
I'm
say
going to pick.
position player, right? Not just hitter, but
Yeah,
yes.
I'll pick a guy I think we both have faith in and had an outstanding year last year. And I think the numbers were misleading the previous year. And I'll say Ben Rice. I mean, I think he's going to be great, but how great? I mean, is he going to be all-star level? Is he going to have a 900 OPS? This guy, an Ivy leaguer who, 2020 was wiped out, he was, I think, a ninth round pick, something like that. I mean, he's got star written all over him based on all the numbers last year, particularly the hard hit rate and exit velocity and things like that. They said he put on weight last year and he showed it, and maybe he takes another step forward. And I think he's big. I mean, I think Stanton, it's great that he's playing, but we're not sure on him. I mean, Rice could be the guy behind the best hitter in baseball and Judge.
John, just so our viewers, listeners know, you and I discuss a topic, but we don't discuss what we're going to talk about in the topic. I picked Rice too.
No, really. I didn't think you
Uh,
would. Okay.
this is a guy, just like to your point last year, it was 530 plate appearances. He averaged his 4.9 homers every 100 plate appearances. That's right there with like Devers, Harper, Jose Ramirez. It's actually better than those three guys, a little better. That's how good it was last year. I think he has another step to go. For me, the question is, can he get to capable at first base? To be able to stay in the lineup on a daily basis. The comp I used earlier in spring when I wrote about him, John, was a Kyle Schwarber-esque arc. He started as a catcher. He showed really early promise with power and plate discipline. I think it's easy to forget because Schwarber has become such a great player that he actually got sent down to the minors in 2017 because he was doing so poorly, and he grew into what he is now. If they get 85% of Kyle Schwarber along the way, imagine to your point, you did the background of where this guy came from collegiately and missing years with COVID. It would be a spectacular result. John, pitcher? I wonder if
You
we're
know,
going to do the same pitcher now
I
also.
don't think so. I don't think so. I'm going to go with David Weathers. He was so good in
Ryan
that
Weathers.
first.
Ryan Weathers.
Right. I'm glad you
And
corrected me. I
and
call him.
by the
I
way,
call
we
him.
are
That
going
shows
with the
my
same
age.
guy. We're going with the same
Oh,
guy here too.
okay, Ryan Weathers. Yeah, I mean, we covered David Weathers. It's funny how many sons and
Sons.
relatives they bring in, right? Mark Leiter, we covered him. Now we covered Mark Leiter Jr., Bellinger, we covered Clay. Now Cody. I get that one right.
Did you
Uh,
cover Dante Bichette when he was an Angel?
yes, I did. I did
So you
cover that.
got that on me. You had
Yeah.
him today also.
Yep, yep. You know what? It's a big advantage being the son of a ball player to make it
Yeah.
as a ball player, right? I mean, I think it's the genes mostly, but certainly the practice helps a little bit too. But Weathers was so good. I went 99.8 miles an hour his first start. I mean, this guy could be quite a pickup for them. They gave up four prospects for him. Um, I think this one might really work. He's still only, I think, 25 years old. He's going to be 26, I think, soon. But young guy was a number 7 overall pick, and Ryan Weathers. I'm going to remember that. It's Ryan Weathers, lefty too.
Uh, John, I went with you on it, and I basically could say amen. Uh, they took a shot at a guy. The comp again, I like comps. Most people don't like comps. The comp I made is the left-hand version of Nathan Eovaldi. The Yankees made the same kind of trade with Miami 10 years ago or so when Eovaldi was 25 and Eovaldi had all this talent, but he had had a lot of injuries till he got there. Eovaldi went 18-3 in his first season with the Yankees, and really his full blossoming was once he went to Tampa, Boston, etc. But he really showed some stuff for the Yankees. The talent is so overt. John, I was there that night when he was throwing up to 99, left-handed starter. Now he dominated a Washington team that wouldn't win the Southeast Conference, uh, but uh, but it wasn't just a fastball. He threw five different pitches. His changeup was dynamic. There is stuff there, and as opposed to places like San Diego where he's a high pick or Miami where they trade big stuff for him. Hey man, you're gonna be in a rotation with Max Fried, ultimately with Garrett Cole, ultimately with Carlos Rodon. I wonder if it unleashes him. That's
Yeah.
that's the that's the thing.
On the other side of the coin is there's a little more pressure here, right? With all
Yeah,
these
no
pitchers
doubt.
coming back, he starts out as your number 4 or 5 starter, and you've got obviously Rodon coming back early in the season. You've got Cole coming back early in the season. I mean, you could flip him to the bullpen for sure, but I'm sure he wants to be a starter, and he certainly has the ability to do it. I give the Yankee scouts credit. I didn't see that coming in the first outing in spring training, throwing 99.8 miles per hour. That could be a huge one for the Yankees.
The reason I had some thought about this almost from the beginning, John, is I did some just digging and I called a lot of teams and asked, were you in on Weathers? And there were a lot of teams that were in on Weathers. Like they all saw, to your point, what the Yankee scouts saw and said,
Right.
well, what if we put him in our place? What if he's healthy consecutively? So obviously that's what they're looking for. A team that also made a trade for a starting pitcher with the Marlins, Edward Cabrera, was the Cubs. Their president of baseball operations, Jed Hoyer, will join us next to talk about that and so much more about his team. John and I are so pleased to be joined this week by the longtime head of baseball operations of the Chicago Cubs, Jed Hoyer. Jed, thank you so much for joining us on the show.
Anytime.
Jed, I wonder if I could start with like a tough question, which is you've obviously been at this a long time. You put a lot into this off season, right? It's since 2017, it's one division title, it's three playoffs, it's one round you've won. The last couple of years you finished behind Milwaukee. You got their manager Craig Counsell in those 2 years. What is the level of, I'm sure the answer is there's pressure every year, but at some point when it's mounting, how important is it to break through, win this division, and make some kind of mark in 2026?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I mean, I think in a lot of ways we had a really successful season last year. We were super consistent. I think that our underlying numbers were good. We won 92 games. But ultimately, yeah, there was a level of frustration, I guess I would say, with the fact that, you know, the team ahead of us was the Brewers, and we lost to them in game five in the second round. And so while there's a lot of positives last year and how we played, it definitely was a bitter taste in our mouth at the end of the year, and that's obviously a taste we want to get out of our mouth. Um, I think there's always pressure in these jobs. I think there's different levels of pressure based on where you are in with your players in your life cycle, and I think we're in a place where we have a very mature team. We have a lot of guys in contract years. We have a mature team. We have a good team, and that means there's more pressure. There should be, right? We are expected to be a good team, and when you're expected to be a good team, there's more pressure, and I kind of welcome that because when you're kind of building up during that process, there's a lot intellectually. It's a fascinating process. There is less pressure day to day to win, but you miss that. I think what you want in these jobs is to field a good team, to have pressure, and to try to win a lot. And I think we have a chance to do that.
You had a big winter, and the biggest part of that winter was signing Alex Bregman. You had tried the previous year to sign him. This year, I think a lot of people figured he'd go back to Boston. Take me through it. How did this come about? Were you surprised in the end that you were able to land Alex Bregman, and why him?
Well, I guess a couple things. I had a good feeling that it was going to be us or the Red Sox. I guess even going back to the beginning of the offseason, we had good communication with him last year. Obviously, he knew of our interest. We immediately kind of rekindled that to start the offseason. But I knew he had a really good experience in Boston. They're a good young team. I know he meshed with their young players, and so with that, I knew it was going to be challenging to not have him be a Red Sox. So I had a sense that it was going to be one of those two places, and obviously, I'm thrilled with the way it ended up. But um, it's free agency. Anything can happen, and so I never had a level of confidence. I had a feeling it was going to be one of those two destinations, and he's a really good player in so many ways. He plays good defense. He makes great contact. He has power. He makes good decisions. Um, on top of that, I think he provides a level of leadership um, to a team that's, per the last question, ready to win. I think that's really important. He wants to make other guys better. He wants to lead, and I think that there's not a lot of guys like that in the game that want that responsibility, and so that was definitely a factor in the decision.
It's interesting, Jed. You said you thought it would be you and Boston. I was a big guy in New York pushing that. I thought the Mets should go hard after him for all the reasons you said, with some emphasis on the leadership after there was some questions about their clubhouse last year. I wonder, after 3 weeks with him now, can you dive into it a little, like all the things you hear about him as a leader? What are those things? Can you put into words what everybody talks about that he brings, that intensity, that leadership, whatever it is exactly?
Yeah, well, it is March 2nd, so we'll obviously the proof will be over a long season, but just as an example, he's been working with some of our young players, including PCA, and he's down there on the minor league side when those guys are taking extra at bats, working with him when his day is long over. I think there's just he takes real responsibility for mentoring young players and for working with them, and that doesn't mean just occasional conversations. It means being there in the cage with them. It means being in the minor league side with them, and so that part is very real. Obviously, he works on his own swing a ton, but he's sort of a baseball rat, and he's obviously going to help out as much as he can. And I also know this from other relationships around the game that um, once we get into the season, I know he takes the pregame prep very seriously, the advanced report stuff very seriously, and we already have a team that does that really well. We have a very diligent group, but I think he provides even an additional level of maturity and responsibility to a group that's already like that.
You mentioned PCA. It's a little bit of a sore point in New York still that he's not a Met. We won't go over. I think we talked with you last time about how you were able to land him. What I want to know about is there hopes to lock him up? There have been some thoughts of Nico Horner as well, who's a free agent after the year and an outstanding player as well. Are there efforts being made for either of them to be locked up between Nico Horner and PCA? And what a great defensive team you have. All these guys that we talk about, they're all great defenders.
Yeah, our team defense is something that we take a lot of pride in, and we have a manager that you can see the teams they had in Milwaukee. I think he loves good team defense, and honestly, I felt like our team defense won us that Padres series last year. They played great, and it's something, like I said, we take a lot of pride in. I'll say this: I never comment on extensions. Both guys are guys that you love to have for a long time. Both have great makeup. Both are good on both sides of the ball. Both run the bases great. I mean, there's a lot of real positives with both guys, and like I said, they're guys we'd love to have long term.
The biggest second move probably after Bregman was Edward Cabrera. You traded with the Marlins. I hate to keep bringing up the Mets, but I think the Mets thought had a good shot at him. Also, they were trying. There were a lot of teams who were trying. He obviously is an interesting a pitcher because of the upside. There's always these concerns with the injuries. Why him, and why would you think you could keep him healthy and get the best out of him?
Yeah, I mean, he obviously, I think when any trade, you're always going to if you're going to get a talented player, you're going to give one up as well. I think we felt like for us, we had a very contact-oriented pitching staff. Our defense helps that, but we don't have that kind of stuff in our rotation other than Cade Horton. So he fit that well. Our pitching guys have long been enamored with him, and getting a chance to work with him. And it's 3 years of control. I think that was a significant factor. His age and the control was a significant factor in sort of being willing to give up a lot of young talent to get him. Obviously, in our game today, things have changed. The idea of rolling out, 5 guys for 1,000 innings isn't happening. But certainly, our trainers, our strength staff, our pitching guys will do everything we can to keep him healthy. And we have 3 years of control of a guy who's really talented, who has a lot of ability to spin the ball. He's got a great changeup, and like I said, he's always been a guy that's been intriguing to us, and it was nice to be able to finally get that kind of deal over the finish line.
Steele, I think, is healthy, and Imanaga is back. Your rotation looks good, but I think you made runs at Imai and Cease and probably others. Tell us about some of those runs, and I guess ultimately you felt you'd rather trade the prospects than to pay the price.
I always think, in general, I think, off seasons are a matter of you're always going to have to put a lot of lines in the water. You mentioned a couple guys that we did go after, and then there's plenty of others you didn't mention, and I think that's the nature of an off season, right? The stuff that ends up on the cutting room floor is expected, and you just have to be in a lot of markets, especially in starting pitching. So obviously we're able to complete the Cabrera transaction, but there was plenty of other starting pitching transactions that we talked about, and going into the offseason, we knew that was an area that we needed to fortify. So you've got to be active. You never know which team is going to value your prospects. You never know which free agent is going to either you get outbid by someone, or he can just not want to go to your destination. So if you've got sort of a plan A and nothing else, then it's not going to work out very well. And I think you kind of learn that you've got to have a lot of options. And like I said, you mentioned 2 guys that we were involved in that we didn't land.
Jed, you've done this a long time. You mentioned that plan A doesn't really ever work out, right? You're not going to get whatever you put on your whiteboard as the ideal off season. How close did you get? And what keeps you up at night that maybe you didn't get at this point that you feel like,
that's a great question. I mean, I felt like we executed a lot of things we wanted to execute this winter. I guess I would say it like that. There's certainly some deals that we talked about that, had they worked out, we would have been really happy. So those things always, you always go back at the end and do the post-mortem on the offseason and talk about why didn't they. And sometimes it's as obvious as another team was more aggressive, but you always want to make sure you talk through those things and try to learn from that as much as you can. And as far as what keeps me up at night, it's sort of always the same thing now. It's just pitching, that like I said, I've done this a long time, and you in the past, you could just kind of your 5 starters generally made most of their turns. And, we live in a world now where I feel like your 9th and 10th starters are really important, so making sure you have enough depth in the rotation, making sure you have enough depth in the bullpen to get through this marathon, because you look around and there's, guys get hurt more often, you're piecing together the 1,440 innings in a different way than you used to. And I think that's the thing that probably always gives you trepidation, is like, how are you going to piece that together? I think we have a lot of arms to throw at that issue, but you never feel comfortable. And I think there was a day in the past that you felt comfortable that way, and you're not really anymore.
Your big move last winter was to bring in Tucker, and so I mean, when you got Tucker, were you thinking that this is going to be, I don't say likely, but a decent chance this might just be a 1-year thing? And also, ultimately, I mean, it seemed dissatisfying in the end. I mean, he obviously is a fantastic player, which obviously you traded a lot to get him. Is he not a Cub due to the money or the fit or both?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. And when we made the transaction, I couldn't have handicapped the odds of him being a Cub or not being a Cub. I mean, I look at it like you bring a great player in, and you know that he's going to have options. We have a good relationship with Casey Close. We had a lot of conversations about him both, prior to him playing for us, and then obviously we didn't talk much during the season about that stuff, but we did talk after the season. And ultimately, like, listen, any team is better for having Kyle Tucker. There's no question about that. He's a great player. But as we sort of thought about just the combination of everything, the fit, the resources, what other things we need to do with our roster, it made sense for both sides to go in a different direction. Obviously, he landed an incredible deal in LA, and we feel good about where we are right now as a team. So it sort of worked out, but yeah, it was a good 1 year with him. I thought he played great. I think that when we were at our best was when he was at his best in the first half. But then obviously, like I said, the long term fit, I think there was a better way for both sides to maybe go in a different direction. But I've got nothing but good feelings about Kyle, and I wish him luck. And like I said, he landed a great deal with a great team.
Why don't we stick with that? He landed a great deal with a great team. What do you think about the Dodgers of it all? I mean, first you got to deal with the Brewers in the NL Central, but it feels like the NL Championship will probably go through Los Angeles again. Like somebody's going to have to figure out how to knock them off of this. There's so much worry. Are the Dodgers ruining baseball? What does it mean to have a $400 million payroll and $150 million luxury tax bill? And add Edwin Diaz and Kyle Tucker to the two areas you feel like. I wonder if they had pretty much plan A happen for them off of the World Series. What do you think about having this in your life?
Great challenge to have. I mean, listen, they've made some incredible business decisions that have led to having a lot of money to spend on really good players, and that's what they're doing. And so the way I look at it is, it's baseball, and they were down 2-1 to the Padres in 24, and were able to squeak out of that series and win the World Series. And then, last year, obviously they had a really tough series against the Phillies that I know it was 3-1, but it kind of could have gone either way, the way those games were. And then, I mean, they were a eighth of an inch away from losing the World Series or whatever it was on that play at the plate. So, I mean, I look at it like it's still baseball. They're a great team, a great organization. They've won 2 times in a row, but things could easily have gone in different directions, both against the Padres, the Phillies, the Blue Jays. And so, listen, it's a great challenge. I think that it reminds me of the late 90s in a lot of ways with the Yankees and how it felt. And you know what? It felt really good when we were able to finally sort of beat them when I was with the Red Sox. So it's a great challenge. And the reason it's a great challenge is they're a great organization and a great team. But it's baseball, and you can still win because it's baseball.
You mentioned they made great business decisions. You actually were one of the 5 teams that really pursued Ohtani, and then I don't believe you got the okay on the final offer to make to him. So I won't ask you to bash your owner now. I'll ask you a nicer question than that. Cade Horton, how good can this guy be?
The thing I love about Cade is that, I mean, he's a great athlete. Obviously, the football background is something that's been talked about a lot. He started out as he was a two-way player for a long time. You see him sort of like field his position. You can tell he once was an infielder. But I think that the way he uses that athleticism is really really special. When I look back at his college video, he's a guy that relied on this incredible slider. He still has that slider, but now he's learned a two-seamer to go with his cutting fastball. He's, developed a changeup that's now a really good pitch. I just love the fact that he keeps evolving as a pitcher, keeps adding different weapons, and our pitching guys have done a good job with him. But I think his athleticism allows him to do that. So I think he can keep getting better. And he was really, really good last year. From where he was in May when he debuted against the Mets to where he ended up by the end of the season was really impressive. So I think he can keep getting better, and he's a great guy to have on staff.
Yeah, we have a similar guy in New York who was a two-way player, Nolan McLean. They both have incredible futures.
McLean's so fun to watch. I mean, he spins the ball so easily. We faced him obviously in September, and yeah, I think that there's something to be said for um, even like watching McLean do his warm-ups between innings, the way he does them, it's so athletic and so natural. And I think sometimes you realize that these really good athletes that are, that do a lot of different sports or do a lot of different, do different positions, like the ability to change arm angles or ability to create different things is different. And I think McLean is like that.
What about Michael Conforto? You signed him to a minor league deal just a couple weeks ago. What are your plans for him if he does make the team?
Yeah, I mean he's in camp competing. Yeah, he's looked good so far. He's only gotten in one major league game, but he's played really well on the backfields. And I mean he's a veteran guy looking to reprove himself. I think he's had for a long time now. It hasn't been in that mode, and I think he's talked about it's kind of refreshing. He's here competing. I know he had his struggles last year with the Dodgers, but he's a year removed from being a good player against right-handed pitching. So we're excited to have him in camp. He's been good so far.
Jed, as a way to wrap up, I wonder, it's hard not to see the concern coming about a potential lockout after this season. So I wonder if there's a two-part thing here, which is one, did you do anything different because of the potential of not playing a portion or all of next year in your decision making? But you're a thoughtful guy, as John and I know. We both talked to you for a long, long time. What do you think that we're talking about labor for next year as March of this year is beginning?
Yeah, I mean, I guess a couple things on that. Having been through this cycle a number of times, this is the most that we've talked about it at this point. It feels like in other times, maybe mid-season, it became a topic, but it definitely feels like it's something I mean, we're talking about now. We've been talking about it for a couple of years now. So I do think that it is something that everyone is, I wouldn't say focused on, but it's something that everyone has in, like, not in the back of their minds. Like, that it's there, and it's something that everyone's aware of. And I mean, my hope is that I do think in a lot of ways, I think that what we're about to see this spring with the WBC is a showcase of the fact that we have so much talent in the game right now, and really exciting, fun talent to watch. And so to me, it's just like just hope that we can find a way to not lose time, because I think we're in a place we're at a really important point in the game's history, in the sense that we have a lot of really exciting players. We need to just continue to move forward and not take steps back. As far as our own stuff, I mean, I think you can see, like, we have a lot of free agents after next year. Um, did we do some contracts that ended after 26 intentionally? Yeah, I mean, I think that there's the fact that we have a lot of contracts that end after next year is something that we had talked about. But it's hard, right? It's a constant topic of conversation just in the industry about a potential work stoppage or potential new systems or whatever it might be. But the fact is, no one has any better information than anyone else, right? And so ultimately, you're dealing with a real unknown. And my hope is that we're doing this podcast next spring or next season, and that we're talking about baseball and how we got through this issue, and that we have a somewhat revised system, and we're playing, because I think that's what the game needs.
Amen. I hope we're doing that as well with you. But in real time, we as always appreciate you're a friend of the show. You've been on multiple times, and John and I both appreciate you doing it. Thanks so much, and have a great season, Jed.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. I
Thanks,
appreciate
Jed.
it.
Thank you.
See ya.
We thank Jed Hoyer for joining us on the show. John, hit or error?
I'm going to give it to the Blue Jays. I think I've given them a lot of hits lately. I'll give them another hit. I promise you, I'm not trying to make it up to them. I know I was hated there a couple years ago when I wrote a whole column about why Ohtani should be in LA, not Toronto. I don't know if I'm making a comeback or not. Probably not. But they signed Max Scherzer back. I think that's a good signing. Only $3 million guaranteed. He's got $10 million in incentives. That's probably the way it should be done. 34 starts over his last 3 years, but he had two really good starts in the playoffs. One in the ALCS against Seattle and one in the World Series against the Dodgers. So I like that signing. I know it's not the big signing that Dylan Cease or whomever, but I like him back. And it's obviously an accomplishment if you're 41 years old and still pitching, although it still doesn't beat Verlander, which is amazing to me, 43.
Yeah, John, I'm with you on it. I like that they haven't stopped trying Toronto. They've kind of gotten, like the taste of it all, and they've pushed this off season and they continue to push. And I suspect that the trade deadline, if they're good, they'll continue to push further. That's where they are now. I think they have some real worries about what Shane Bieber is going to be able to give them this year, physically. So Scherzer offers some cover there. I think they're slow playing Trey Savage in spring training. I still think they're not positive what they have in Jose Berrios. So I like the signing just as some level of protection. John, I'm going to give a hopeful hit to the World Baseball Classic. You and I are doing this on Monday morning. When this is done, I'm going to be. You're in Florida. I'm in Arizona. I'm going to Team USA's press conference today. I'll be at their first spring game, I believe, tomorrow, like their exhibition game, getting ready for it. We just saw spectacular Olympic tournaments in both men's and women's hockey where the United States ended up on top. And I think this is, I dare say, sorry to the 1988 gold medal Olympic team, the best collection of American players that have ever been put together, led by the captain, Aaron Judge. And by the way, there's a lot here for Judge, right? Can he win a championship? Can he win a championship over Ohtani? Right? Ohtani's like ahead of him. It's 4 MVPs to three. It's a couple of World Baseball classics to
No shame in that. No shame.
right,
Ohtani's ahead of everybody.
and two championships with the Dodgers, including one over the Yankees and Judge. So like everyone else, respect to all the countries. I hope we're like it ended up Canada and the U.S. in both hockey finals. I hope it ends up U.S. and Japan again in the WBC finals, and it's as classic as it was last time when Ohtani struck out Trout to end the whole thing. So here's hoping it's a great tournament and we get that great final.
Not U.S. and Canada again. You're not thinking that we'll get another U.S. Canada.
I think they might be lined up on the same side, so I don't think we can get there. But I'm not
Oh, okay. All right.
about
You're more
that.
of an expert. You're going to the
I
press
know I'm
conference
not an
now.
expert. I might be wrong about that, but
All right. Yeah,
but
I mean that's the logical final, right? Oh, well, Dominican is out team is
yes,
outstanding as well. That lineup is just incredible. Look, Mark DeRosso, you had on this podcast a few weeks ago, did a great job recruiting. He started with Judge. I mean, he started with Skeens. He got Skubal. Uh, our rotation, even without Joe Ryan, is amazing. Logan Webb is a fantastic number 3 starter.
yeah.
We have a great team. We have no excuses. In the past, we've always had or often had a kind of an okay rotation, not a spectacular one. Now we have arguably the 2 best pitchers in the world, right? And we have a
Yeah.
lineup that compares to the Dominican and probably better than Japan's. And there are no excuses. So let's go win this.
Yep, I'm with you. Our champion every week is Tommy Hogan. He's our producer. This was again a quickie show put together yesterday to be able to do this today. We always appreciate Tommy finding the time to be able to do it. Apple, Spotify, wherever you listen to our podcast, please rate and review us. They really do help us, as does watching us on the New York Post Sports YouTube page, and continue to listen, watch, or however you're taking in the show with Joel Sherman and John Heyman.